Thank you for coming through, Sanjiv.
Thank you very much.
Those are very interesting numbers, but I wanted you to take us through the wealth market, as it were, here, and what we measure, and so people have a sense of what we're talking about.
So I think we have to get onto the cycle of wealth, if I may use that word. You
Please.
Start with wealth creation, and then you get into the mode of wealth management, then into wealth preservation, and then into wealth migration. So this is the journey which I would say the wealth pattern seems to indicate. And the financial services industry plays a role at every stage. And in the African continent, I think it's well known that the maximum wealth exists in South Africa. So South Africa has...
Still, even though Nigeria's economy is bigger.
Yeah, but South Africa has the largest number of the wealthiest and also the size of the total wealth. Now, wealth is also a function of capital being created, capital being invested, and capital being valued in various forms, either on the stock exchange or by virtue of the rising property market, or the value of art going up, or your investment in Bitcoin going up. So it could well be a function of the behavior of various asset classes and the proportion of that asset class in your portfolio, which will then determine the wealth.
Absolutely. And talking about how you define those wealth bands, as it were, I wanted you to take me through what you have defined here, because you have three categories. You've got centimillionaires, you've got multimillionaires, you've got millionaires. Explain each one, please.
So these are the three categories of the wealth segment, and divided by the total value of wealth ascribed to within those segments at the end of the day. So if you're $1 million worth, then you're a multimillionaire. If you're a few more, you come into the next category.
Right.
And when you get into the billions, you're in the millionaire category at the end of the day. It's just segmenting the wealthy and the rich as well, so that people are then able to understand what their needs are. That at every stage or every segment has different needs. It's only when you know the needs which you will be able to service them properly.
Absolutely. So what I found also interesting about your research is that you were able to break down in terms of the wealth of these individuals, who is where. So I learned for the first time, for instance, that there are 649 individuals who are dollar billionaires in South Africa. 39,200 with net assets of more than $1 million, and 2,070 who have net assets of $10 million or more. Take me through the trends. Are we seeing an increase? Are we seeing a decline? And what's the function of that?
So if you look at the last decade, the average has been a positive growth. And
we're getting more dollar billionaires.
Yes. And why it has been an average growth, you will also see you've had positive GDP growth. You've had a great performance on the JSE stock exchange. You've seen significant appreciation of property. You've also seen African art increase in value.
Did you say African art?
Yes, African art increase in value. And if you put all that together and take the last year away, the growth has been very, very encouraging. Now, since the last 12 or 14 months, you've also had the depreciation of the currency. That means the erosion of wealth if measured in US dollars. You've also had a little slowdown on the stock exchange. That means the market cap of the companies has come down, and therefore the size of the value of the wealth has deteriorated to some extent.
Absolutely.
And then you've had the first quarter of the current year, which has produced not an encouraging statement on the GDP growth, which means that the new wealth creation has suffered a little setback. So with the result, year-on-year growth has been much less, but the average of 13% I think is very, very encouraging.
So which is the closest correlation that you find in this research? Is it between wealth growth and GDP, or wealth growth and market performance, as in the JSE or these other indicators?
The best way to answer the question is that it is perceived, and research will also prove that if the GDP is growing, then obviously wealth is being created in that country. So there is a strong correlation between GDP growth and wealth creation. Now there is also enough research to say if the GDP is positive, generally the stock exchanges are also positive. But there are other elements which also weigh in the factors of how the international investors view your economy,
Sure.
or any economy at the end.
yeah.
What's the flow of capital from outside into the economy, which
Yeah.
also propels valuations, as the case might be.
Yeah.
What is the stability? What's the future forecast?
Yeah.
So it's a combination of so many factors.
Yeah.
To say that one thing is correlated, it's very difficult to say, but to say that GDP has an impact,
Yeah.
that research is proven.
Absolutely. Time is running away from us because there's so many things I want to talk about. I wanted you to talk about some of the things that the rich do with their money, but you got to talk about whose is bigger than whose. That's Johannesburg, Cape Town, Durban, Paarl, or Pretoria.
I think every city has a good distribution of the wealthiest, but the latest trend seems to suggest that areas around Durban,
Yeah.
Ultadanga,
Unklak.
yeah, and a few more cities are gaining
On Johannesburg.
momentum on Johannesburg. But Johannesburg still remains the largest because it's
Johannesburg
the
is the
largest
top dog.
contribution to GDP
100%.
and it's got the largest number of the wealthiest.
Yeah.
So I don't think there is a significant challenge,
Yeah.
but it's reasonable to presume that the other cities should catch up, and it redistributes or distributes the wealth across the place.
Absolutely.
It's a good sign.
It is a good sign. I just wanted, for the record, to brag a little bit about Johannesburg, because I think Cape Town sometimes punches well above its weight. So Cape Town, in terms of those billions, those who have got dollar billions, we are talking about 133. But what about Johannesburg? 248. The other ones he talks about that are again Durban, yes, 54, yeah, Garden Route, Pretoria, 45 billion. It's an absolutely fascinating report. Sanjiv, thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Sanjiv
Thank you.
Bhasin is the CEO of AfrAsia Bank.